Fair warning, this is a long-winded rant about some long-winded games. If you'd rather simply play them, I highly recommend you do so. They're on a variety of platforms. There will be mild spoilers in this video, though mostly just how the game is played. The stories within are there for you to discover for yourself. In 2014, developer Silverstring Media released Glitchhikers, a free experimental driving simulator. The game was basically 20 minutes of driving in a car at night, listening to odd music and a mildly disquieting DJ, and picking up hitchhiking monsters, aliens, and other strange beings. They would tell you tales of their experiences, their worlds, and their feelings, with you occasionally answering questions to guide the conversation. It was a simple experience, but it gave you a chance to think about deep concepts and vibe with the eerie aesthetics of a nighttime drive by yourself. In 2022, Glitchhikers: The Spaces Between was released, and presented players with an expanded experience. Again set during nighttime, the game now featured a gas station hub with 4 different destinations. The highway drive returned and now featured an endless mode for continuous vibes. The other options include a park full of colorful art installations and a meditative podcast, a train with busking musicians and a friendly conductor, and an airport with no planes, full of the shadows of travelers and ominous announcements. Each had a plethora of new travelers to interact with, again telling stories of themselves and preaching their own philosophies and worldviews while asking you to give input on your own feelings. While the expanded interactions were appreciated, I felt the game lost some of the charm of its simplistic origins. Some characters started to feel repetitive and became tiresome to interact with across destinations. Though I played for several hours, I was unable to meet every character, but this wouldn't be my last time playing. Shortly after Glitchhikers, I picked up a game I'd owned for a while but hadn't fully sat down to immerse in yet. Where the Water Tastes Like Wine is a 2018 game developed by Dimbulb Games and Serenity Forge. The game is set in the United States at around the time of the Great Depression, but features stories and characters ranging from the late 1800s all the way to the 1960s. You play as a man who loses a bet to the mythical direwolf and is forced to cross the country collecting stories and interacting with travelers along the way. You collect a variety of folk tales from different cities and share them by the fire with other traveling characters. As you share more stories, the other travelers open up about themselves and eventually befriend you, allowing them to show depictions of their inner selves and giving you a relic to fast travel across the country. You can also hitchhike and hop trains for fast travel, but you risk missing new stories or finding changes made to the stories you've already collected. As I played more of the game, I became enthralled by the tales, often getting chills at the ghost stories or laughing at the strange interactions of children, animals, and unknown beasts. With how much I loved the experience, I thought I was ready to give Glitchhikers another chance. As I played, I started to see a pattern in the experiences, and thought I was able to glean meaning behind both games. I kept having the same infamous quote popping up in my head over and over. It's not the destination, it's the journey. So what are the journeys and destinations featured in these games? Both play a little differently. In Glitchhikers, the destination is the interactions of the other hikers, while the journey is the simple experience of the game, aka driving around, riding on the train, walking through the airport, or walking through the park. The journey is the quiet parts of the game, where you simply take in your surroundings. And where the water tastes like wine, you know what, let's just say water to simplify this from now on. In Water, the destination is the interactions with fireside travelers, who you build relationships with and learn the personal tales. The journey is walking across the country, collecting the folklore, myths, and personal tales of anonymous people and creatures. Hearing this, you may question, why isn't the end considered the destination? Well, I thought about that too. Glitchhikers doesn't really have an overall ending. The drive finishes after interacting with 4 hikers, the train can finish after you interact with 3 that appear on the train and ending up at the front, and the airport or park you can just end whenever. In Water, the end of the game is reached by completing the story arcs of all 16 other fireside travelers, and meeting again with a direwolf to tell your tale. In that way, the player could play the whole game collecting stories and avoiding other travelers, but they would not be able to complete it, and that's where I see the journeys as similar between these games. Talking to the travelers and hikers between games may lead to the end goal, but to me the journey of experiencing the atmosphere of Glitchhikers or finding the folktales in Water were much more important than the destinations. Really, it was my interpretation of the destinations that made me realize how similar these games were. And that's also where I noticed the things that spoiled my gameplay somewhat. In Water, each fireside traveler can only be told a story once, making it hard to remember later in the game what you've already shared with them. Also, picking stories with the wrong tone won't increase your progress meter, meaning you'll have to go back and speak with them later. The dialogue gets repetitive if you aren't tracking which stories you've already used, or which they like. These interactions can lead to some of the characters just feeling boring by the end, and making you really want to just finish the goal. This was a similar feeling I had to the hikers and Glitchhikers. While some of their philosophical discussions held my interest the first time, their random appearances meant that I could see them multiple times across different runs and not really change up their story. Even with the minor dialogue changes on different destinations, it wasn't enough to make them feel unique. Also, there was a chance that you wouldn't run into some characters for who knows how long. When the dialogue is already a bit long-winded, very few people will want to hear it a second or third time. Plus, on a personal level, I'm not a great reader, and I lose interest pretty quick when I have to read through paragraphs of text. Water at least alleviated that issue by having fantastic voice actors reading almost every part of the writing in the game.
The Twisters touched down in a cornfield, fence posts flying in its wake.
Didn't I hear that story on the radio? You told it better, though. If you're looking for freedom, just think about how magnificent a train is.
With all these criticisms, you may think I didn't like these games, but that's simply not true. All I'm saying is that interactions between characters took the most effort in listening and understanding. I still enjoyed hearing all the tales from the hikers and many of the tragic backstories described by the travelers, but when their stories started to repeat, it was time to move on. Really, I think the coolest thing about these games is the fact that you can play them at your leisure, and choose to experience these tales whenever you want, or not at all. This is why the journey in each of these games is so very important. In Glitchhikers, you don't have to talk to anyone on the train, terminal, or park. You can simply experience the view and listen to the sounds around you. The only part that forces you to interact with hikers is in the car, and you have the choice to end their conversations, or just skip them by playing endless mode. In Water, the narrator's telling of folktales can hold your interest easily, with many having unpredictable twists and tonal shifts. The walks between stories can be long, but the point of the game really isn't to rush anyway. Catching the occasional car or train ride can help, but I preferred walking to make sure I didn't miss anything. It's also worth exploring areas you've already seen to see how your stories have changed over time. One example was the story of John Chapman, a drifter who sells and plants seeds along his travels, which eventually turned into the tale of Johnny Appleseed. Other American legends like Pecos Bill, Paul Bunyan, and John Henry all made appearances too. It was really cool to come across stories like this and go, hey, I knew that from when I was a kid. Sometimes the game felt like it would never reach an end with how large the map is. But when you finally reach that final story, that sense of fulfillment that you've accomplished something is pretty impressive. Both games emphasize the meaning of collecting these oral traditions. They feel like something that's going to benefit you and future generations. These games somehow feel like reading a good book. They feel like works of fiction that need to be preserved, shared, and studied. While both are full of fictional tales, they still feel like culture, something important historically, even if it didn't actually happen. I wanted to end on a high note for this video. I want to make sure that people understand that I love these games, and that I want to share them with others. While I would love experiences like these to be shared with everyone I know, slow-paced games with easily achievable or non-existent win states don't always draw a crowd. I don't know how sales have been for Glitchhikers, though the team online appears to be fairly positive. I do know, however, that the developer for Water voiced a lot of concern with low sales early on. Creator Joneman Nordhagen even said, I can't discuss exact numbers, but in the first few weeks, fewer people bought the game than I have Twitter followers, and I don't have a lot of Twitter followers. These games have received critical acclaim, both from publishers and by player reviews. Most players who are out looking for games like this are going to give them better reviews, but it would still be great if the average gamer knew about these games at all. Games like these are at a strange intersection of the developing mind. Wander brings forth stories many of us heard as children, connecting them to realistic tales of America's growth and the experiences of the people who lived there and died there. Glitchhikers pushes us into the future, examining our own lives and comparing it to fictional creatures who tell of their struggles that many of us relate to. Both of them focus on concepts of death, loss, abuse, love, friendship, offspring, technology, God, and fate. Also, if you're sensitive to any of these topics, Glitchhikers allows you to edit which type of topics you don't want to discuss. I urge you to give these games a try for yourself. The original Glitchhikers release, now known as Glitchhikers First Drive, is available free for anyone to try. And while there's no demo for Where the Water Tastes Like Wine, I've played enough on my channel that you could probably get a sense of if you like it or not. Open your mind to the possibility of an experience. Maybe you won't reach the end, but just remember it's about the journey, not the destination. And that was where this video was going to end. But I had one more thing to add. Like these games, I personally tend to ramble on a bit. I assume most people haven't reached the end of what I'm saying. The truth is, I have no idea how to end this video. I made my comparisons, I did my analysis, but I didn't feel like there was a way to wrap this up. I really envy creators like Jacob Geller or Aaron Signal who can wrap everything up in a nice bow, but as I said, I'm a rambler, and so getting to the end can be really difficult for me. But then it hit me, literally weeks after I finished writing this. Part of the difficulty in ending this video is that the games themselves don't really have endings. The games don't really have that final destination. Glitchhikers continues on, even after you've collected every character, every drink, every interaction that you can think of. You can complete every achievement, but just keep playing the game. It doesn't really say you're done. You can meet every character 1,000 times, hear their stories by heart, carry them on with you forever, or just skip ahead and bathe in the calm of the experience. You can continue the journey even if it's just driving off into the infinite. Water, on the other hand, takes a very different approach to this. We know you can beat the game. You can collect every story, meet every traveler, return to the wolf. You can do everything there is to do in the game. But there will always be one thing you haven't done. You haven't completed every achievement. You'll get achievements for most of your interactions, completing different encounters and different little tasks across the country. But in the end, there will always be one achievement left blank. One thing staring you in the face. And that achievement name is, Where the Water Tastes Like Wine. You weren't able to find the fabled place the wolf sent you to. You weren't able to find that perfect location. You scoured the entire map and never found that place, and you never will. Anyone with the achievement has hacked it. There's no legitimate way to get it. The programmers chose to do it, knowing that it would drive achievement hunters crazy. They wanted you to know that you will never find that perfect place. They wanted you to know that you aren't done yet. Maybe you're done with the game, but what did you learn from it? What did you take away? Did you see the problems plaguing the country 100 years ago and think, we still have some of those same issues? Did you see every location and think, everything is broken and terrible, and the people are all struggling, even in the best cases? This is where the story continues. This is the purpose of my video, I guess. I needed to make this, I needed to share this so the world can keep searching, so that we can keep searching. A place where the water tastes like wine. We might not find it in our lifetime. We may never see it, but we can keep striving to find it. One day we can look back at these stories and see how we've grown, see how our nation has grown, how the people have grown. We may follow this journey for the rest of our lives and never see the destination, but it's worth it. It's worth it for the people we meet, for the stories we gather, for the ways we change the world, even in the most minute way. Now I see and understand how the journey is so much more important than I ever thought possible. So go find your paradise. Go take the long ride to wherever you need to go. Maybe we'll cross paths along the way. Whether you're the one picking up travelers or sticking your thumb out to catch a ride, a little company is always nice.